So today we're going to look at the building blocks of a scale, and these are called tetrachords. And this episode is a bit about music theory. It's also a bit about creativity and improvisation. But if you don't know anything about music theory or you're not really an improvising player, I think you'll still actually enjoy these exercises. So our theme this week is mirror, and if we divide a scale in half, we end up with two halves, which are called tetrachords. And these are like the dividing line. We have our mirror on each side. Sometimes the halves are the same, sometimes they're different. And this gives us a really nice way of exploring both music theory and improvisation, because half a scale is a much more manageable piece of music to deal with than a full scale. So I'm going to give you some exercises if you are a beginner, some exercises for advanced players. We're going to look at both major and minor tetrachords. And if you want to stay to the end, there is a relaxation exercise to get you in a nice, confident space for your music practice so you're ready to tackle something potentially new and challenging. Strike, spark. Welcome to Practice Space. I'm Erica if you're new, and Practice Space is a place for practical exercises, creative exercises, philosophical discussions. There are new videos Monday to Saturday, so if you want to follow, you can subscribe to the channel. And I also teach music online, so if you ever want to go deeper into one of our weekly themes, you can book a lesson with me. I'll leave a link in the description below. So let's just jump straight in. What is a tetrachord? A tetrachord is basically just a 4-note scale. If we take the major scale, which is the familiar one to most people, the Do a deer, a female deer scale, normally it has 8 notes if we count the top octave. And if we divide that scale in half, we end up with 4 notes on this side, 4 notes on the other side. And our dividing line is like our mirror, hence the theme. And so we have 1 tetrachord on this side and 1 tetrachord on the other side. And for the major scale, we have kind of like a nice reflection. We have a major tetrachord and then a major tetrachord. So we have 2 identical tetrachords on each side of the scale. So don't worry about why they're major tetrachords. Don't worry about how they're formed. Let's just listen to what they sound like. So this is the first half of the major scale. I'm singing in the key of A. So we've got Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Mi, Re, Do. And then the second half, So, La, Ti, Do, Ti, La, So. So both of those were major tetrachords. And here comes my first exercise. If you're just starting out with music, this is a chance to learn one of these tetrachords. So we're going to think in the key of C because it's a little bit easier. There's no sharps or flats. So in the key of C, our first tetrachord goes C, D, E, F. These are the 4 notes you need. The second tetrachord is G, A, B, C. So learn one of those tetrachords and then have a go at just doing some very simple playing with the notes. So improvising. I'd like to call it playing because improvising is scary to some people, but we're just playing with the notes. So maybe you try some different rhythms. Maybe you play them up and then just back a few notes and then back to the top and then go all the way back down to the bottom. Concentrate on simple ideas. And because you only have 4 notes, maybe you can be a bit more creative with textures, with playing them in multiple octaves, trying it in all the octaves on your instrument. So this is the first exercise for beginners, is to learn to play either the C, D, E, F major tetrachord or the G, A, B, C major tetrachord. So if you're ready to go a bit deeper into this idea of tetrachords, let's actually look a little bit at the music theory and how do you create a tetrachord, a major tetrachord, from any note on your instrument. So we need to look at the building blocks, which are tones and semitones. And if you don't already know, the distance between a tone is from one white key to the next white key with a black key in between on the piano, or on the guitar, for example, the 1st fret to the 3rd fret. This is the distance of a tone. And then a semitone is smaller, hence the semi. So on the piano, it's the distance from one white key up to the next black key. And then on the guitar from fret 1 to fret 2, so no frets in between. And so I'm going to sing you the major tetrachord and I'm going to show you where those tones and semitones are. So we have Do, Re, tone, Re, Mi, tone, Mi, Fa, semitone. And the same works for the second half of the major scale. So, La, tone, La, Ti, tone, Ti, Do, semitone. So now that we know how to build the major tetrachord, if we rearrange our groupings of tones and semitones, we can actually find a minor tetrachord. which then opens up a huge amount of possibilities if we want to combine these two halves of the scale and create a bunch of new scales. So let's find the minor tetrachord. I'll sing it and then we can talk about where the semitone is. So first listen and see if you can work out which note is different from the major. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do is the minor, and I'll sing the major to contrast. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. Hopefully you guessed it was the third note, the mi, that changes for the minor. And so if we think of our intervals, our tones and semitones, we have do, re is a tone, same as for the major. Re, mi, this is where our semitone has moved to that second position. And then mi, fa is our tone. And so I've got a diagram here which should hopefully help you visualize the tetrachords. So you can see the major, we have our two big stacks, the tones, and then the semitone happens at the top, the colored in one. And then for the minor, we have first the tone, and then we have the smaller semitone, and then we have the tone on the top. So now that you know how to create both a major and a minor tetrachord, the next task is to, from any note on your instrument, have a go at creating both major and minor tetrachords. And you could improvise a little bit if you like, or you could just explore all of the major tetrachords you can find, all the minor tetrachords you can find on your instrument. So if you're feeling very adventurous, I have one final exercise, and this exercise is the most fun exercise we're going to have today. So this is actually taking the major and minor tetrachords and combining them into scales, but changing the order. So putting the major on top, minor on the bottom, minor on top, major on the bottom, two minors, two majors. And so what we end up with is creating a bunch of different scales and modes, and we don't need to know the names of these scales and modes. We can just use our ears, enjoy the colors of these different scales. And then if there's a scale you really like, I'm sure you can use AI or Google to look it up and find out what scale am I playing. So let's listen to a couple of options. I'm going to sing the major at the bottom and the minor at the top. And before I start, I should say that when we're combining them, we need to have the distance of a tone in between the two halves. So this is not always the case when we combine tetrachords, when we use other kinds of tetrachords, because there are more beyond just major and minor. But for our exercise today, there's always going to be the distance of a tone between the two halves of the scale. So this is major on the bottom and minor on the top. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Which has a super nice sound. And if you're curious for the name, it is the Mixolydian scale. I really love improvising with the Mixolydian scale. It has this kind of question mark in there. It's very sort of searching, I think, the Mixolydian mode. And so let's try one other option. Let's put two minor tetrachords together. So minor on the bottom, minor on the top. And you may think this will create a normal minor scale that you're used to hearing, but it actually doesn't. It creates a different kind of minor scale. So it sounds like this. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Again, that's a really nice sounding scale, and I like improvising with it, and it's called a Dorian minor scale. So when you combine your tetrachords, don't stress too much about what is the name of the scale. Don't even worry if you don't really know what is a mode, what is a scale. Really let your ears guide you and put these two tetrachords together and just enjoy the sounds on your instrument or in your voice. So I think you'll definitely have a lot to chew on after this episode. And I hope I've been able to show you that music theory doesn't have to be about reading things in books. It can be about exploring things creatively and using your ears. And then when you feel ready, you just fill in the gaps. You've put the labels on things. So music is about listening. Music is about playing. And it's sometimes not helpful in the beginning to have the label. We can explore without knowing what something is called. And then when we're ready, we can actually give something a name. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like the video and you can subscribe for daily practice support. And then if you like, you can stick around for a very short relaxation exercise after this, just to help you get in, hopefully, a very confident, exploratory frame of mind for your practice, so you can work on something that's potentially difficult. It's potentially going to stretch you out of your comfort zone, but could actually be really fun and rewarding. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. So let's just take some time to prepare the body and the mind for practice. Take out your instrument, books, music, whatever you need for your practice today, and then spend a few moments making the space comfortable. And when you're ready, coming to a place of stillness, you can stand or sit with your instrument, and then with the next exhale, gently closing the eyes. Bring your awareness to your breath. Notice where in the body you feel that breath moving: the nose, the throat, chest, diaphragm. Where you feel the rise of each inhale and the fall of each exhale. And now you can begin to count each breath. 1 with the inhale, 2 with the exhale, 3 inhale, 4 exhale. Just up to a count of 10, then returning back to 1 again. And if any thoughts appear in the mind, simply noting, thinking, or any feelings, noting, feeling, and bringing the attention back to the breath. If you find you're distracted, simply returning to the count of 1, back to 10, and then repeat back at 1. So now slowly bringing your awareness back to the body, feeling the weight of your body in the chair, or the feeling of the feet connected to the floor. Maybe the feeling of your instrument under your fingers, its texture. And then, when you're ready, you can blink the eyes open, and I wish you a wonderful day's practice.